Hello and welcome to today's edition of Web TV Focus on Twitter Spaces. I am Emefiele. Welcome as you join us for an insightful discussion on two pivotal developments in Nigeria's economic landscape. Now, today we're delving into the recent suspension of the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, and also examining the potential impact of this change on the country's monetary policies. Additionally, we're going to be analyzing the newly signed Student Loan Access to Higher Education Act. That's what it's called, exploring its provisions, one, funding sources, loan requirements, and its potential implications for Nigerian students and the higher education sector. Don't miss out on the engaging conversation that will shed light on these crucial economic matters. And of course, you could join us at WebTV Nigeria using the hashtag WebTVFocus. Now, at this point, I'll be welcoming our contributors on today's conversation. And joining us is the co-founder, CEO of Dairy Hills, Kelvin Emmanuel. Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us. Kindly request to speak so we could approve you and you say hi to everyone listening. All right, while Kelvin is doing that, let's also welcome Olushesi Tolulope Samson. Tolulope is the chairman, National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, Lagos State. So you'll be joining us also on this conversation. And just yesterday, around 8 p.m., if I'm right, the president also suspended the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Rashid Bauer there. So, hi, Kelvin.
Hi, Mr. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to have you. Hope you're not feeling the rain so much.
It's not raining in Abuja. It's not raining where I am.
Wow, it's raining cats and dogs here. Anyways, we're here together when we talked about what the president should do when he assumes office, talking about the CBN governor, and we talked about it. And many of us, even you, said it should be suspended once it comes in. Now he has been suspended. Let me start off this way. What was your initial reaction with that suspension? Although some people said, the president breached the CBN Act by unilaterally removing him. What was your own initial reaction to that?
I wasn't surprised. Um, I was actually expecting it to happen the first week after the inauguration, not the second week. But he did it the second week. But we'll take it. Sections 11, I think 11 D and F specifies that the president can remove the CBN governor if two-third majority of the Senate ratifies it. And the CBN governor can be removed from office if he's convicted of any crime. We suspended the governor of the CBN, so it's now left for him to send a request to the Senate to ratify the decision. And of course, he'll forward the reasons why that decision should be ratified by two-third majority of the Senate. But you can see the reaction from the markets. You can see that the markets are realigning. The markets are excited. And the removal of Emefiele as governor of the CBN has paved the way for reforms like unification of the exchange rate, which is one of the most critical reforms that Nigeria needs to move forward. The fact that we had several exchange rate windows, multiple rates, one for customs, one for airlines, one for from one for the different IE had their own exchange rate, was the greatest impediment to the flow of foreign direct investments into Nigeria. And you saw the fact that when Buhari took office in 2015, Nigeria had an FDI flow of $4.4 billion. It dropped under him, it dropped 90%. 90%. 90%. When President Buhari took over office, before he took over, the CBN was remitting $30 billion to FAC monthly. He took over and the remittance went to zero and supply of FX shrunk for both royalties as the government-owned enterprise and NNPC is, and for um, um, foreign direct investments that supplies the CBN that they use for their primary wholesale Dutch auction to primary dealers and for secondary market intervention scheme SMIS. So for me, it's a positive development, um, and I am cautiously optimistic.
I like that word, cautiously optimistic, Kelvin. Let me come in here. Yes, already we are feeling impacts, just as you said, investor reacting, market reacting to that suspension. But let's take it one after the other. With the circular that the central bank actually shared through its press release, and it tagged it operational changes to the forex market. And the first one on that circular is that I read and I quote, abolishment of segmentation, which you also rightly mentioned. All segments are now collapsed into the I&E window. Applications for medicals, school fees, that's BTA, PTA, and SMEs would continue to be processed through deposit money banks. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with a friend that has two children in the United Kingdom in school. And he felt sad with this latest news about the BTA and PTA because it's now no longer going to be under the official rate, but at a floated rate. I mean, what's your own take on that move? Where every segment, yes, every segment does have to follow and fall under if we are going to unify the market.
Now, I some people have accused me of being a bit um I don't have human touch. And someone said Kelvin does not have human touch because he's always market focused. What about the people, the people, the people? But you see, the thing is this: if you don't focus on the market and you build economic policies based on emotions and sentiments, you're going to end up with a huge socialist subsidy program that is lopsided to favor a few people and eventually fails to meet with traditional market conditions, which is what we had with, for example, the direct intervention programs that has not yielded any results so far, right? So look at school fees subsidy. Look at the amount of money CBN, all the subsidy programs for FX does about 270 to 300 billion monthly in subsidy, and the government is looking for 8 trillion naira deficit to fund the budget for 2023, which has like several unintended consequences to the macroeconomic policy framework. Look, I feel the pain of parents who have to pay school fees because Nigeria has a very decayed educational system and they have to take their words abroad. But the reality of the matter is, most of these children in school abroad don't come back to Nigeria. Does it make sense for the government to fund the education of young Nigerians who do not come back to contribute to the economy? Some people say diaspora remittances. I see the argument for that. But what government funds students abroad who do not come back to develop the country? I'm not making an argument to say it's a bad thing for Nigerians to school abroad. It's an extremely good thing for people who can afford it. But it should not be done at the expense of the country. Now, the other flip side to this argument is this. If you float the Naira, which is what has been done now, liquidity begins to come back. Liquidity begins to come back because the government has also obeyed Sections 2051 of Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 and has deregulated PMS. NNPC is going to start remitting royalties to the Federation account to FAC, right? And you're going to begin to see liquidity from the for FDI and FPI, you're going to see that FPI volume is about 9% currently. You're going to see tick up to around 30% within the next 12 to 24 months because you're going to see a forward derivative market come back into play to help foreign investors to be able to find the forward curve and hedge risk of currency fluctuations. What you will see is that as supply begins to meet and exceed demand for FX in Nigeria, yeah. For example, the airlines have 818 million US dollars stock in Nigeria. Several other companies have close to $30 billion currently stock that needs liquidity for repatriation. When that is met and people are constantly getting their FX needs met, you're going to see the rates begin to stabilize. So the rate will not remain at 750. The beauty about a deregulated FX market is that the rates never stay in one place, right? The rates continue to move, and it's based on free market condition, willing buyer, willing seller. So if supply is higher than demand, you're going to see that the Naira will strengthen. So the argument that, FX is going, the rate is going to remain at 750 and things are going to be perpetually expensive is just not true.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. That brings me to the transparency of all of this. And one of the things said in that circular is that reintroduction of order-based two-way codes with bid-ask spread of 1 naira. Now, because of that, there will be the reintroduction of order book to ensure transparency of orders and seamless execution of trades. Prior to this, when we go to the bank, and we ask that, okay, we want to change our dollar to naira and all of that, we see the reactions of these tellers. And they're telling you, oh, it's not available. In fact, they give you that impression that you should go to the parallel markets. So how do you think this would really work? Would we feel the transparency at the end of the day?
So, you know, the reintroduction of order books simply talks about the fact that at the investor and exporter dealer window, the IE window, every quote from the people who are bidding or people who are selling is actually open. It's not a closed ballot. For example, you saw at the National Assembly in the Senate, the ballot was secret. At the House, the ballot was open. Some people were complaining at the House that the reason why they could not vote for the other candidates who were not preferred by the ruling party was because the ballots were open at the House and they couldn't risk their security to the party. So what this says is that the reintroduction of order book shows the transparency in the quotes for bid and ask for willing buyer and willing seller. Everybody will be able to show the price at which they are requesting or they are selling. What that does is that it ensures there's transparency and that there is no manipulation in the process, because it's going to be determined by willing buyer and willing seller and based on the forces of demand and supply, and not on any underhand like we've had over time, where for example some people try to manipulate the rates and try to fix it at a particular point for the purpose of round tripping. So order book transparency simply means that every transaction that is supervised or done by primary dealers or stakeholders in the FX market, the IRE window, has to be recorded and has to be, transmitted to the Central Bank of Nigeria at the end of every trading day. That's what it says.
So do you think it's going to work, really? Just a yes or no?
It will work. Of course, it will work. It's free market conditions. I don't see any reason why it's not going to work at all.
All right, so let me just hold your thoughts now. Let's look at this Student Loan Act that the president also signed into law earlier this week, so that we could hear the part of the student in this conversation. We talked about, just as we started this conversation, we talked about the effect of the monetary policy on the BTA and the PTA. And so many people are saying maybe many Nigerians will come back to Nigeria to study with this latest loan act. And don't forget, you could also join us in this conversation at WebTV Nigeria using the hashtag WebTVFocus. And if you would like to speak, please put your thoughts together so that in under a minute you could make your thoughts count, so we could allow others to also speak. Kindly request to speak. While we also invite Olusegun Tolulokpe Samson, who is the chairman, National Association of Nigerian Student Nuns, to join us in this conversation as it regards students in Nigeria. Hi, Olusegun Tolulokpe. Let's get your view. Was it yesterday? Yes, if I'm right. NANS and some other student unions met with the president on this act, and you expressed your satisfaction and your approval of the act so far. Let's get your reaction. I know you also mentioned some things to the president and what you don't want in that act. Asking ASU, it looks like it's a cat and mouse game here. ASU is also saying that some unions shouldn't be part of that act. So let's get your reaction to all of this. How happy are you with this loan act? Kindly request to speak. All right, just before he unmutes himself, let me just give you a few pointers or talking heads on what are the benefits of this Student Loan Act to Nigerians. And some of the things I jotted down is that the act provides an interest-free loan for indigent Nigerian students, in which beneficiaries will only pay back the exact amount they collect. That's one. Also, the Act offers loans for indigent Nigerian students seeking higher education in government-owned universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. It also enables students to have equal rights to access to loan without any form of discrimination, either from gender, religion, tribe, thereabout. It also provides that students the Act also states that it shall be given to students only for the payment of tuition fees, as well as the establishment of a Nigerian Education Loan Fund with the objective to provide education for. Well, some of those things are not so clear as to where the funds will be domiciled, whether it's with the CBN or the education banks will be created. But those are the benefits to it. I don't know if Olushesi is ready for us now. Kindly unmute yourself. All right, if it's not there, Kelvin, let me quickly get your own reaction to that. Yes, those are the benefits I've reeled out there. But there's a lot of controversy around this loan act.
Yeah, me see, I'm not, I don't pander to populism or to the mob. I don't pander to any political party in Nigeria. Um, I'm not in any political party in Nigeria. Um, so I support my convictions and I believe in sound economic policy making. If the government makes a policy that is good, I will praise the government. If they make a policy that is bad, I will criticize them. The student loan is a populist policy that was done to pander to a base. It was not well thought through. And I'll tell you why it's not well thought through. You say you're going to give out a loan at single digit, but you're going to provide a moratorium period. For the sake of the people who are listening to us this morning, our distinguished audience, moratorium is a period for which you're not expected to pay interest on your loan. So, for example, you borrow money from a bank, 20 million, the interest rate is 28%. The bank gives you a 2-year moratorium. For that period, the bank does not expect you to pay interest. They are expecting you to defer the interest until the 3rd year. Let's say you're going to give single digit. Number one, the prime lending rate today is about 19.5%, MPR 18.5 plus 1, that's 19.5. And then what it means is that the CBN is going to discount the prime lending rates to the students, number one. So if, for example, the single digit lending rate is 9%, you're going to discount 10.5%. Who pays for it? The CBN. Where do they get the money from? For the period for which you're applying moratorium, if the moratorium is for 5 or 6 years, it means for the 5 or 6 years, the CBN is paying for that interest. That's what it means. Where is the money going to come from? So I like to look at it from the angle of investment banking. You have the buy and the sell side. The sell side is the provision of the loan. The buy side is the employer taking the student when he graduates from school, paying the student a salary, and ensuring that he can repay his loan. Considering that we have an unemployment rate of 37.7% and is expected to go to 41% at the end of this year, okay? The question I have is, where's the funnel to provide the buy side, which are the jobs and the employers, to take the students at the end of their graduation, which is a moratorium. Give them job, give them an income to be able to pay for it. This is a question that has not been answered. So for me, there are more important issues because tertiary education is divided into four major areas: infrastructure, research and development, administration, and scholarships. Those are the four major areas. This particular one is couched as scholarship, but it's loan, student loan, right? So what you're eventually going to find is you're going to find an oversupply of graduates who have certificates but they don't have jobs. And you're going to find a situation where the impairment on the loans are so high. Like you have Anchor Borrowers program where impairment is 75.4%. And the government has to do loan loss provisioning. And this is one of the reasons why, Yemisi, in line with sections 51 and 3 of the CBN Act, I have advised the federal government to ask the central bank to adopt IFRS as the accounting model. Because in IFRS, you have in provision for impairment that obligates the company not to carry over impairments beyond a financial year. So if you have an impairment on your book for this financial year, you have to do loan loss provisioning for it in this financial year and not to carry it over like CBN has done for many years now. This is the reason why I'm saying the federal government should ask the CBN through a Senate amendment to move from International Public Sector Accounting System, IPSAS, to IFRS. Even the IMF has advised the central bank in its Article 4 report to do so. Okay. So for me, I'm like looking at this from the angle of everybody saying, oh, the government has money. And a lot of Nigerians have this funny mentality that the CBN has an everlasting flow of money that never dries up. If it's a central bank, there's always money. And it's a very weird thinking because the central bank, before securitization of ways and means, had 24 trillion naira on its balance sheets that was impaired.
Yeah.
It does look like Nigerians are used to freebies, and just as you said, the decay in the Nigerian government schools as a result of this free allowance that is being given, and that's why the universities are not well taken care of. Well, that's what some people would say. And another thing, I kind of like your argument around that. And another thing that this requirement is asking is that student applicants' income or family income must be less than 500,000 naira. There's a lot of questions asked in that regard. But just before you come in on that, Kelvin, let me bring in Olushesi. Kindly make a request to speak, Olushesi, so we could hear you. Yes, I was asking you earlier. You met your union, a representative of your union, NANT, and some other unions, met with the president, Tinubu, yesterday, and you actually gave your approval to that loan act. How happy are you guys about it? I know you're playing some, you've asked some things be removed from the act, but let's get your reaction on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me make a correction. The meeting with the president was done by our national president. That's on the person of Comrade Uthman Barambu. But I was able to talk to him yesterday, and I asked him what are the necessary things they went to the president for, because that bills needs to be adjusted. So they came and said part of what they requested that should be adjusted in that bill is the criterias. Yes, because the criterias for the student loan, don't let me say it is at the high side of the student. Yes. Normally, once you have a degree, once you are a degree holder, automatically you are a level 8 to level 9 officer. So how would you now say we have to look for a student needs to make sure he has a level 12 officer to be like a guarantor for the student loan. It is really at the high side of the student. Yes, it is at the eyesight of the student. That is part of what the national president went to discuss with the president. Another thing they discussed again was the income, the family income per annum. should not be less than 500,000. Yes, which is 42,000 naira every month. I think that's also on. It's also on that high side, because looking at it, and this in this our Nigeria now, we can say some family income are more than that. Are they trying to say automatically once your more your per annum income as a family is more than 500,000, you won't be able to apply for the loan as a student? Yes, because talking to Comrade Barambu yesterday, he told me, he said the president, in the person of His Excellency Ashiwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, ensure and told them that whatever changes that would come into that bill will be done by the House. Once the House is in full session, they will look at how the bill should go and what are the necessary things that should come into the bills. And another thing that was discussed again was not to we the Nigerian student wants to have a representative in the board members of that bills, because looking at it, the board members of the bills does not have any student office. Yes, does not have any student office.
Okay,
And
let me come in there. Why would you want the board to have a student office?
yes, thank you very much, because this loan is for the student. Yes, and according to the bill, whatever thing that will be coming straight to the national level would be from the vice chancellor to the chairman of the board. Now, where is the student? Where is the student coming in now? The student needs to have a representative in that board, so we'll be able to discuss to our representative. And a suggestion was made that a committee should be formed by the national president of the National Association of Nigerian Students. Yes, if it is a committee of one, or possibly the national president himself should be as part of the board members of the committee.
All right, let me get experts' view on this. You could also make your opinions count. Kindly make a request to speak so we can hear you on this matter. But Kelvin, let me bring you back here. Yes, you had given the argument about, okay, for this 6 years that this loan will be given to the indigent students, who pays for the interest? Many Nigerians, just as you said, think the CBN has a large pool of funds somewhere. But let's look at this 500,000, less than 500,000 naira family income, and the characterization. Many feel it is curious when you characterize this fund, this income, and if as just as Olushesi said, if you're going to break it down monthly, that's about 42,000 naira income for the parents. And Nigeria at the moment, the income wage is still up at about 30,000 naira. So what's your take on this? How would this work? Do you think that characterization was okay?
Let me tell you the thinking of the government. So you remove petrol subsidy was a way to compensate NLC and NANS and TUC for removing petrol subsidy, knowing fully well that the increase in pump prices will take away from the income of households. They say, okay, let's give student loans. We're also going to grant financial autonomy to universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. At my last count, there were about 144 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So the question I have is, why don't you tackle things from the roots? And I'll give you a few pointers. So in the private sector, this National Minimum Wage Act of 2019 favors only people in the public sector. It doesn't favor people in the private sector. In the private sector, you have organized labor, you have unorganized labor. Okay. So if, for example, the government comes and says, you know what, we're reviewing Minimum Wage Act 2023, and minimum wage goes to 45 or 60,000 per month, does it impact on millions of Nigerians who still earn below minimum wage? No, it doesn't. And why doesn't it impact? Because mostly for the unorganized labor, who constitute a larger chunk of the private sector, there is no legislation that protects them from being treated as temporary workers without full employment benefits.
Benefits.
Even in organized labor, there is no legislation that prevents them from not unionizing against their employers and having a situation where companies use third-party HR firms to recruit and pay them and manage them, which is against labor laws in any sensible or developed country. These are the fundamental issues I want the government to look at, not populist policy issues like giving out loans. Now let me look at it. So, let's come back to education. The question I have is: university education is the tertiary education has been on decline, but is that the only area to focus on? How about universal basic education? How about the secondary schools? How about the primary schools? How about reviewing the curriculum? How about actually building infrastructure for university, for secondary schools and primary schools across Nigeria through the Universal Basic Education Fund? How about agreeing to the Abuja Declaration that says 15% of your budget should go into education, 15%
Sure.
into healthcare? How about ensuring that you have the Nigerians Governors Forum remove the right of way charges for piping? Okay, they've done that because they reviewed that from 145 naira to about 14 naira 50 kobo per square kilometer for piping broadband across states in Nigeria. Because this is absolutely essential for you to bring Nigeria into the fourth industrial revolution, for you to ensure that you can build young people from primary and secondary level into the modern economy, giving computers out to schools, to students, ensuring that their schools have proper infrastructure, they can sit in and learn, they have lights, they have internet, they can learn, like make computer science and coding part of their curriculum. PwC commissioned a report on global value chain, a white paper that models what we have in India and that can build a lot of millions of Nigerian youths into, you know, you live in Nigeria and you work for a foreign employer and you earn in USD. Your money comes, you pay taxes. You don't have to jackpot. You don't have to run from Nigeria to be able to earn US dollar. Yeah, which is the dream of a lot of people living in Nigeria and earning US dollar. Okay, these are the fundamental issues I expect the president to not to pander to a particular base, try to impress people by applying a lazy solution to a very complex problem. The problem of education is not a problem that you can just wave a magic wand. It will take time. It's painful. It will require tough decisions. Giving financial autonomy to universities, to tertiary institutions, is one thing. Now, turning that tertiary education trust fund, which at the last Finance Act was amended from 2.5 to 30%, into a counterparty trust fund that the schools can now use to now raise money from alumni and raise money from tuition fees and also provide scholarships to students is another part of the argument entirely. These are the kind of reforms I'm expecting that the president will apply, not knee-jerk. The student loan is knee-jerk. Because you're trying to say, when it was announced, I saw the rush, people were excited. Oh, like, but are people really paying attention to the fundamentals and the underlying details and the fact that the educational rot we have in Nigeria, it didn't start from the university system. And even if you're trying to apply a solution to tertiary institutions, a student loan is not an effective solution to the problem, and it's not going to move the needle. Because I've explained to you, you supply the market, the jobs market with people, supply of graduates are more than the jobs. How do you liquidate their loans? They don't have jobs. How do they pay the money?
Honestly, I was wondering how they would pay the money if after 2 years from NYSC and you're yet to secure a job, how do they pay the money? I mean, where does that go, really? And a lot of people are also worried that these universities, they begin to commercialize the fees of the school. But let me hear from Olushesi Kelvin, just before I talk about that commercialization by universities based on this loan act. Olushesi, you said you wanted student representatives on the board, but you're also asking that ASU should be removed from the board. Why did you say that? Why do you want ASU removed from the board? Because I felt ASU was representing the students.
All right, thank you very much. ASU represents the student, being a union of the student university union, staff university union. Yes, ASU is a staff university union. So whatever thing ASU will be saying would not be what is in the heart of the students. ASU cannot really tell the committee, the board member, what the students are facing. Yes, I'm trying to say the reason why we want a student representative in that board, it is because it is a student representative that will be able to pass a message of the students to the board. So the board would know what the student populace are going through. Also being in that place is just like how will I say it? Probably to be able to checkmate. Yes, the loan is for the students. ASU is the union of the staff in the universities. Why is the student board, student representative not in that place? So the reason why we are asking for student representative is because the student representative would be able to discuss at heart what the students are facing, the issues, the problem, the advantage, disadvantage of what the students are facing would be able to be passed to the board through a student representative. And the student representative would be very easy for us to go through. Yes, I can pick up my phone now and call the national president and tell him, okay, sir, the national president, sir, these are the issues I'm having in my state. Please let me pass it down to the national level. It will be very, very easy for we to communicate what we're facing, our issues, down to what? To the board and the committee of the loan. So that is the reason why we are suggesting and pleading that that bill should be revised and the student representative should be fixed up as part of the committee of the student loan. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. You meant that act should be reviewed because it's already passed into law. All right. Thank you so much, Olushesi. So many things need to be reviewed on that, really, because if you look at the board, even the polytechnics, the tertiary, the training colleges are not well represented on that board. And many are also saying that why do you have to have a retired VC being the chair of the board? So I feel that a lot of questions need to be cleared as to how the board was constituted. But Kelvin, let me come back to you. Talking about regulation of this Loan Act and talking about how universities are going to be managing this going forward, many are of the view that universities have been given the free bill to increase fees just because students can go ahead to apply for a loan. So when we talk about regulation here, how do you think, I mean, it's been signed into law already, and we believe that reviews will be done as the days go by. In September, the disbursement will begin. So how do we begin to regulate it looking forward with this Loan Act? The activities of the board, the banks, whether it's the CBN or Education Bank that will be in charge, the sourcing, all of that. What should the regulation look like?
Well, first of all, the first thing you want to guard against is racketeering. Racketeering is organized crime. Connivance of the people who are in that value chain for selecting who gets what. That's the first thing you want to guard against. But ultimately, like I said earlier, the real elephant in the room is loan impairment. That's the real elephant in the room. If you disburse loans to 500,000 people and you incur maybe 200 billion or 300 billion, and when it comes to time for them to pay, 75% of them cannot pay. What do you do? What do you do? They said they're going to use 1% of revenues to pay for it. What if the revenues are not up to the impairment? What does the government do? So for me, this question is more important, and it's something that I think they should sit down to analyze than um, the issue of racketeering and people conniving to game the system or to favor particular people or giving out goods loans to collect for themselves. That is an issue, but is a small fish to fry as compared to the risk of loan impairment. That's my major concern, because this was the same issue we had with all the anchor borrowers program and real sector support facility and what have you with the Central Bank of Nigeria. That for a regulator that is not equipped with the ability to um, vet, disburse, monitor, and recover loans to individuals and companies or cooperatives, because that's the work of a commercial bank. It's shocking that they went into banking. They basically, mopped up, jacked up the CRR, non-discretionary cash reserve ratio, mopped up the 2.5% of all the cash in the banking system, handed it over to the federal government. The ones that they could not mop up from CRR, because the CRR, both discretionary and non-discretionary, non-discretionary was basically like debits and penalties and fines the banks were paying, that amounted to somewhere between 7 and 9%. Together, they make up between 41 and 43%. CRR was so high that he couldn't raise it any further because it would risk like a serious problem in the banking system. He went into quantitative easing to get money. So for me, this is the question I'm asking. This student loan is another socialist program that is a populist policy that is meant to pander to a political base. And if history has taught us anything in Nigeria, it's the fact that trying to impress people through socialist policies falls flat in the face. And the best way to run an economy, because despite all the direct intervention programs, the central bank governor, the past central bank governor, last time he spoke at NPC, he was claiming that he had given out 8 trillion naira in direct intervention programs. But purchasing power of Nigerians dropped 49.5% in 8 years. Unemployment rose. Inflation rose. So how come the economic indicators are not reflecting the fact that 8 trillion naira has been disbursed? So if history has taught us anything, it is that populist economic policies that are meant to pander to political bases does not work. It falls flat in the face.
You are already this act is really not what you would have wanted the government to actually. This bill is not something you would have wanted them to sign into an act. Well, let's hear from those that were impressed, the students themselves. And we don't know if Abdul Malik is a student, is one of our audiences who wants to speak to us. Abdul Malik, kindly make a request to speak so that we could hear you. And unmute yourself. Let's hear your opinion so far of this Students' Loan Act.
There is a viral video going on internet now. Please, I want to ask the audience that, is the video really from the CBN governor's house, the suspended CBN governor's house, or not?
All right, we would have to verify that. We've seen that video gone viral, but we would have to verify if that video is from the suspended CBN governor's house. Thank you so much, Abdul Malik. All right, Olushesi, let me get the reactions of students around you about this loan act. I asked your reaction. We asked what the NANS spoke with the president. But what is the reaction of students generally to this act?
Right. Thank you very much. A lot of students still need to be well tutored. Yes. A lot of students still need how will I say it? Like we are working on having a big event, like a sensitization program. Yes, because a lot of students are happy. They're very happy. They're clapping, oh, alone, to school, to this. But it is far, far, far more beyond that. Yes, and one of the problem students who applies for that loan will be facing is unemployment. Because this is between me and you, there is no chances, yes, that out of 100% students that apply for the loan and goes to school. After schooling, then 2 years NYSC. Let me say it without no exaggerating. With the level of unemployment in Nigeria, let's say 80%, there's a big chance 80% might not be able to pay up that loan. Yes. That is why we're trying our possible best. A lot of students are happy. Yes, students are happy because they had loan. Students will go to school, won't pay, no, won't look for school fees again. Will be giving student loan good. But with the idea of the national president, that's the person of Comrade Baba today, he said very soon a big program, sensitization program, student sensitization program will be coming up very soon to sensitize all the students about the loan. So every individual as a student would know if you're capable of going for that loan or you are not capable. Yes. Generally now,
we're glad to hear that.
yes, all the students are happy. It is a loan. Everybody wants the loan. Yes. But now the best thing we feel we can help is bringing them together, sensitizing them. Let them know what are the things, advantage and the disadvantages of this loan. So I want to believe after that sensitization program, the students will get what they really need to get about the loan.
Oh, we're glad to hear that the NANS is proactive on sensitization of what the Loan Act is all about. I mean, if you want to take a loan, you need to know the pros and cons and the mandate and all of that it's involved in getting the loan before you go ahead with that loan. Thank you so much, Olushesi. But let's get back to our talk on Emefiele suspension, just as we are rounding up gradually on this two pivotal conversation that we're having today. You could still make your thoughts count. Just request to speak as we go on this and use the hashtag WebTVFocus. All right, Kelvin. The I&E window, we saw it reacted to that announcement of the free flow of the market. And just as yesterday, if I could recall, Naira fell to the dollar fell to about 640 Naira to a dollar. How do you think it's going to pan out in the next coming days? Are we going to have a further depreciation?
Yes, you're going to see an adjustment of the I&E window with the parallel market rate. You're going to see that they're going to the both of them will continue to come to meet at an equilibrium, and them coming to meet at an equilibrium will depend on the market being able to solve an immediate need for $3 billion of repatriation money that is stuck in Nigeria for companies that want to move monies out of Nigeria. The airlines, for example, Nigeria contributes about 29 to 32% of airlines blocked funds around the world. IATA airline blocked funds around the world. Nigeria is the highest on that chart. So like $818 million of $3 billion that is stock for different companies. An airline industry alone has $818 million. So when you solve that ticket from that window, because of the liquidity, you're going to see that the I&E window will start moving gradually to align with the parallel market rate. I expect that the parallel market rate over the next 6 months is going to drop consistently. My projections are they will settle when they meet an equilibrium. They will settle somewhere at around 600 to 625 or 630 to USD. But that again will depend on if you don't have oil shocks, because you can see that Nigeria's output today, daily output exclusive of any caps on domestic supply, according to sections 109 of the PIA, is somewhere around 1.3 million barrels per day. OPEC has capped Nigeria at 1.38 million barrels per day. The president says he wants to get up to 2 million, 2.5 million by next year, and then targets 4 million barrels within the next 3 or 4 years. I have advised them, look, get out of OPEC like Qatar did in 2019, because the forward guidance for OPEC over the next 2 to 3 years does not allow Nigeria any room to raise its export quota to 3 or 4 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia controls OPEC. So the best thing to do is get out of OPEC and stay in that declaration of cooperation, because if Nigeria wants to raise the earnings that it gets from the production sharing contract to NNPC, less JB cash costs that are debited on amortized capex and recurrent OPEX, it needs to increase its output, its export quota. And for you to do that, you need to leave OPEC and stay in declaration of cooperation for non-OPEC members. The crude oil NNPC sells, it will remit it to the FAC account at the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Central Bank will now use that money and supply the market at the aligned exchange rate through primary Dutch auction, wholesale Dutch auction at the primary market to primary dealers, and then the secondary market intervention scheme, the SMIS. Yeah. And then when it gets the Naira equivalent, it will now remit it to FAC. So the difference is that, for example, Nigeria currently has a revenue to GDP ratio of 7.98%, and the government has 10 trillion naira in deficit it has to raise for the 2023 budget. It's not been able to raise up to 30 or 40% of that so far, which means there's going to be a huge deficit in this performance of the budget for 2023. Now, you've removed PMS subsidy. You're going to stop borrowing money to pay subsidy and stop borrowing money to pay debt servicing and finance maturing principal. You get a 39% increment from government-owned revenues from NLNG, dividends and taxes from NNPC because of exchange rate alignment, right? So for you to increase the government revenue so that you can shrink the deficit in the budget, so that the government does not rely on debt. Because when you rely on debt, what happens is that if you rely on the central bank, it affects your exchange rate. If you rely on the market, the debt servicing is so high, and then inflation goes up. And what happens eventually is that the central bank will be forced to raise interest rates to align with inflation. It will hurt businesses because the commercial lending rate today in Nigeria is between 28 and 31%. So you see how they all connect like a web. So my point to you is, listen, you need to raise crude oil output and you need to get out of OPEC for you to get more dollars to stabilize the FX markets in Nigeria, for you to be able to increase government revenues and reduce your deficit financing in the budget. So my assessment is that the policy direction, so in fact, Goldman Sachs just released a note this morning on the Nigerian government, the decisions, and he says that his outlook is positive. It expected one or two clarifications from the central bank on his position on the FX unification. But so far, the outlook is positive. I expect that within the next 3 months, Moody's and Fitch will begin to, review Nigeria's rating from junk status that it is right now. I expect that if they continue in this direction, that the country risk premium for Nigeria will trend down. It's currently at 1,600 basis points, about 16%. It will trend down, and that will also affect tier one banks in Nigeria. It will affect multinational companies that earn in multiple currencies around the world, especially in Africa. It will affect both local and foreign currency issuer rating. But my assessment is that if the government continues on this path, this 100-day plan that it has, that I've seen, it will begin the process of turning the economy around gradually.
Thank you so much on your last word. But if reports reaching me are right, it looks like Nigeria increased its supply today, and he has got. Well, I'll try to get that information right. But it looks like we're moving in that direction quite soon. Still, we would like to hear your comments before we round up. We just have a few minutes to round up on this conversation. But let's get your last word, Olushesi, on all of these. When is it likely that that awareness campaign will kick off? If it's just a day event or it's going to be a continuous campaign with the students? And your last word, just before we round up.
All right. That is why the reason why that is the main reason why we said we the students needs a representative. And the in announced as announced president, you have to use, or you have nothing less than at least a year and 3 months in office. Yes. So concerning the sensitization, we are coming out with the sensitization very fast because we don't want students to ignorantly go and start applying for loan. They need to know. So the national president said very, very fast, a committee has been set up for the sensitization program, which I want to assure you concerning the student loan, there will be continuity in the sensitization of our Nigerian students. There will be continuity as promised by the national president, that's Comrade Usman Barabu. There will be a continuity in the sensitization because we learn every day, and we need to always sensitize our students every time about this loan. So the generation coming, the younger generation would not be affected. Yes, because they need to know. But I can assure you, very fast and in no distant time, the sensitization program would kick off.
All right, thank you so much, Olushesi. Let's just take a few comments from our audiences. And this one is from Mide Paul _sleek. And he says, I think the whole idea is good. That's talking about the Student Loan Act because it will benefit the Nigerian youth. But then, what are the plans for job creation? I just think them both should work on simultaneously. I guess that's what he's saying. And this one is from Olajide Pelumi. He says, with the terms and conditions laid down in securing this loan, the area of target for which these loans are being disbursed, less privileged people are also indirectly automatically disenfranchised. That's too much of a list of conditions. There should be better ways for guarantee. All right, that's from him. And this one is from Just Tolale Coin. It says, student loans without increasing employment opportunity is a misplaced priority. I mean, this is all we have discussed in this conversation so far. A lot still needs to be looked into as regards that loan act that the government has kicked off with. So, I mean, in coming days, we'll keep looking at it and see how it works. Disbursement will be in September. So let me get your last word on on Emefiele's suspension. Just before we go, Kelvin, what do you think is going to happen to Emefiele if he's been found guilty of the charges laid against him, charges of terrorism, the monetary policies that he's put in place, and so many other charges? What do you think would happen to him?
See, I am not a member of the security architecture of Nigeria, or neither am I a prosecutor. So I don't know. I don't think I'm in a good position to answer this question you've asked me. But it's important for us to understand that it's better to build institutions than build powerful men. It's better to build these strong institutions than to build powerful men. And that the rule of law is supreme. Nobody is greater than the law. Nobody's family owns Nigeria. And that at the end of the day, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. I'll leave it there.
Nobody is greater than law. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. That's a very good way to end this conversation, Kelvin. Thank you so much for taking your time out to speak with us on these two issues that we have anchored on today. Thank you so much, Kelvin Emmanuel. Kelvin is the co-founder, CEO of Dairy Hills. He's been speaking with us on the CBN governor suspension and its effect, its impact on the monetary environment in Nigeria. We've also been speaking to Olushesi Tolulokpe Samson, Chairman, NANS, Lagos State. Thank you so much, Tolulokpe, for sharing your thoughts with us. on this conversation on Twitter Spaces. We appreciate it. And to our audiences as well, we appreciate you for joining us in this conversation. As regards that video that went viral that Abdul Malik talked about, we would verify and would know if it is true or not. But please let's be courteous with whatsoever video we'll see and try to verify if they are true or not, so as not to spread any form of misinformation or disinformation. Thank you so much. The conversation continues at WebTV Nigeria. Please drop your thoughts for us using the hashtag WebTVFocus. Thank you so much for your company all the way. I am Yemisi Lanredo. I'll see you again.